Hello and welcome to this presentation for parents both in Los Angeles here at Millikan Middle School and in India. My name is Gary Joseph and I'm a science teacher at Millikan Middle School. In 2017 I was privileged to represent our country in India as a Fulbright teacher, and I definitely did some touristy things. So just to get that out of the way, I did visit the Taj Mahal and visited a Sikh temple. What happened to the Sikh temple? Yeah, there's the Sikh temple. And the Gate of India in Mumbai, Humayun's tomb in Delhi. And here I helped organize a field trip for Tamil-speaking students to an observatory and the science center in Bangalore. When I was in India, I visited many different kinds of schools, public schools, government schools, elite private schools as well. Also tried to work with different NGOs and any educational organization that kind of saw things the way that I did. The work that I did on my project, what was it exactly? So I shared my progress with other Fulbright scholars at a conference in Kolkata in March of last year. It all started with me trying as a teacher to improve the science fair experience for all. So maybe you saw this internet meme online a few years ago. So at Cal State University Northridge, I did my master's research action project around the idea of using technology to improve outcomes with science fair. In essence, this was my question. And if you were to ask most students why they were doing a science fair project, this would be your answer. My next challenge was asking myself, how could I make the assignment popular, worth repeating, entirely voluntary, and more sharing than competitive for students? Enter Genius Hour, an idea that has taken root in many progressive classrooms. Towards the end of my Fulbright time in India, I realized that students, teachers, and administrators were all very supportive of my work, but ultimately it was parents who decide what is really important enough to spend time on. And in India, the pressure to do well on high-stakes exams is actually even greater than it is here in the United States. And those exams are largely based on memorizing like entire textbooks. So there's very little time for something like this that is really just coming from a student's passion. By the time my Fulbright was over, my last week in Delhi, I returned to schools I visited under the condition that they put me in front of an audience of parents. This school in Gurgaon took me up on the offer, and here I am presenting some of these ideas to parents at the Heritage School. In Fulbright, I morphed the projects from being purely about science and aimed for a more multicultural or even international scope to the collaboration. My hope as before was to make the project intrinsically engaging for students. So I had my students at Millikan create projects and record short videos requesting collaborators, and then I curated all of them on my webpage. Cool ideas like this power spinner, solar phone charger, and an automatic sprinkler system all were projects that had really interesting stories behind them. In India, I was responsible for finding the schools and everything else that I needed to be successful. I met with teachers at different schools and we shared ideas. We had some good discussions. I got some strange honors. But my project was really stalling. I attempted to reach the students directly with this flyer that I had printed up, but not really much happened from it. It turned out that I needed to really do live presentations and that students in India were more interested in doing their own projects than just joining in on one that had already started. At least they needed to know more about the process. So what I do is I would walk them through it with making these 4 lists, starting with activities that they like to do on the weekends. followed by things that they daydream about in class. Here I am doing this presentation to a few hundred students at Delhi Public Schools North, Bangalore. The third list are dreams for careers that students have. And finally, is there a subject that the teachers moved on from that you wanted to learn more about? And it would result in a bracket kind of like this, where the student could have their passions, battle it out until they ended up with a champion passion. And that is something that the student is personally invested in. And from these, we would brainstorm ideas, choose one, and then present it to the class in a Shark Tank format. So the pitch would involve basically 4 slides the students made. What are you making? Why are you making it? Like, who is it going to help? How are you going to make it? And most importantly, what does success look like for you? How are you going to define success? Anyone who's ever made something knows about the iceberg paradox, or how success looks like to others. So yes, you eventually get here to the top, but in reality there are many setbacks and failures, and this project is really focused more on process than product, which actually fits pretty well with our new science standards. I was invited to speak to students at the Valley School in Bangalore, and I gave a presentation on the nature of science to some younger children. And through my connection with a fellow Fulbrighter in India, her name is Marina Basu, a parent from that school took the lead in helping me take my project further. And so she improved my flyer and actually hosted weekend workshops in her home to help me find participants for my project. And that's when things started to move forward, and these particular girls are still in contact with some of my students at Millikan, even though they finished working on the project. They were the new science standards called the Next Generation Science Standards. Here is my kind of bootlegged version of the logo. Changed to be a little bit easier perhaps to understand. The essence of the NGSS is something called three-dimensional teaching and learning, and these are the 3 dimensions that are meant to be juggled all the time. So it's less about memorizing and more about the process. So students have science and engineering practices that they should be doing, specifically these 8. And there are cross-cutting concepts that weave throughout the sciences and many other subjects, specifically these 7. Now, the new tests that students are taking this year are quite challenging, and they are less about memory and more about performance tasks and performance expectations. The solution I have for all of these things actually is using another progressive movement in education called the Maker Faire. And at Millikan Middle School, we want to have an official school Maker Faire this year with lots of cool tech things, but also anything that students have created and have a story that they want to tell about it. A typical Maker Faire includes things like soldering stations and many hands-on activities. If you get a chance to go out to San Mateo this year in May, this event is sure to have a major impact on you and your child. And now I want to share with you a sample of different kind of activities that you might see at a Maker Faire. Things like bubbles and Rube Goldberg contraptions, slime or instrument petting zoo, marble runs and knot tying, marshmallow launchers, mosaics, and other crafts, paper circuits, squishy circuits, spin art, sun prints, constructions, helicopters, and tapegami. This thing right here, all of these sculptures are made out of masking tape. If you are interested in signing your child up to participate this year, on this Google form where you're watching this video, you can share that information with me. Students in my classes were instructed to make a list of possible projects. Now, some students did not even submit a list, and perhaps many who did will choose not to participate. Perhaps you want your child to participate more than they do themselves. And really, that's where your job as the #1 teacher of your child comes in. So thank you for your attention and support, and I look forward to hearing from you.